This is Tony Waite, who again is going to talk about energy, but he's going to talk about it from the solar side of things and how you can actually cut your energy costs to just 3p a kilowatt hour.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Tony Waite. I'm the founder and CEO of Solar PV Group. Been in this industry now for about 15 years. Started off as a residential installer, installing on thousands of residential houses in lack of a feed-in tariff as it was then, which was great. That feed-in tariff encouraged uptake, made people much more aware of what was doable with solar PV. I then moved on to a more commercial aspect because that's where I saw the business going and the future of PV and energy generation. So from that point, we really stepped it up and brought commercial PV to C&I industry, which was really good. How can we slash energy costs to 3p per kilowatt? You probably think that's a little bit of clickbait, but actually it's not. Some of the clients that we're working for, some of the big businesses that we put PV on the roof for, such as the one in the photograph there, Lineage Logistics, huge logistics cold storage operator across the UK and globally. They're slashing their costs, and the electrolyzer cost for what that systems generate is probably less than 3p, if I'm honest. We do have to factory O&M and other things on top of that, so it just takes it slightly above the 3p mark. But it comes down to cost, and it comes down to price of installation, fully PC, O&M contracts, etc., etc. So I'm really confident that we can get prices down to 3p per kilowatt. That's for what's generated. What does everybody ask me? Can we fill the roof? Can we cover all our energy bills? Unfortunately, that's quite difficult because what we try and do when we're installing a PV system is match the generation across the usage. So it marries. Data we've talked about, the guys have talked about earlier, data is so vital for us to be able to plug and design a system because we match that half-hour data into our PV design software and then that spits out the system. But we've also got to look at what's happening in the future, what are you doing in the future? What's the future energy consumption profile look like? So we try and take all these factors into consideration when coming in from an EPC point of view. We've looked at various different things, and the guys talking earlier, we're working with some big companies now, DHL, Prologis, we're the main contractor for Prologis. So I'm coming in today from an EPC point of view and what we're finding as an installer, as an EPC, and what we see in the market moving forward. A couple of questions. I think it's always good to start with a couple of questions. How much of the UK C&I real estate do you think is optimised for PV right at this moment? We'll go into these questions later. Less than 10%. That's 90% of solar of rooftops still available to optimise with PV and energy generation. That equates to about 41 gigawatts of power. That will cover everything in the UK pretty much. It's a huge market and a huge opportunity moving forward. What do we think the cost of electricity are right at this moment? What do you think the cost of a kilowatt hour is to run somewhere like this? Probably 3 years ago it was 7p. But with increased costs, with what's gone on with Russia and Ukraine over the last few years, I've seen energy prices go up to 98p per kilowatt, which is pretty frightening. And what can we do about it? Well, if it happens overnight, we can't do right much about it, can we? Talk about the climate now a little bit later in this slide. So I'm not trying to frighten everybody. We just need to be aware of what's actually happening in the energy market and how things can change and how things can change really quickly. So who am I? I'm a guy that set up a PV business on my own 10 years ago because nobody else was doing what I wanted to do. Delivering scalable solutions with honesty and integrity and giving the clients the kind of information that they really need. My business is built on trust, honesty and relationships, a lot of personal relationships. A lot of the work that we carry out is through relationships I've built during my time in this industry. I don't spend a lot of time talking like this, to be honest. I've always been the face behind the business. I've got a face for radio, obviously. But I'm trying to build a little bit more now and build on my personal profile and get in front of people and give them the benefit of my knowledge, because it's quite significant at this moment. So that's sort of where I am. We're founded in 2014, created to make solar simpler, more reliable for UK businesses, and now one of the most trusted UK EPCs in the country, working with some big clients. I'd say I'm trusted clients as well. The challenge, as I say, energy is one of the top three costs the business could face, and that goes across every business across the UK, not just warehousing, not just manufacturing. Every single business, energy is a serious consideration these days, and how we can cut that is really important. I'm coming at this from a solar angle, but there's much more. There's much more to it than that. And as the guy said before, the holistic approach is what we're trying to achieve as well. We work with many companies and many energy brokers and people like that, consultants, and those guys are coming to us to deliver these systems. As I say, prices, I've seen prices going from 8 pence to 98 pence. It's pretty scary. So building that resilience, making sure that we can cap those costs, and we can do something for the future. Is so interesting. It's really fascinating what we're going through, what we've been through in the last few years. I find it pretty exciting, to be honest. So warehouses, perfect, massive, underutilized roof spaces that we can install pretty significant systems on. There's a lot to go at. High daytime usage, follows the solar out perfectly. Again, moving forward, we're looking at battery storage and other things that we can bolt onto these systems. I don't think batteries quite there yet, but in the future, probably next 12 months, 18 months, we'll be somewhere near with the battery side. So what actually matters: cost and ROI, safety, reliability, scalability for high loads, how much per kilowatt, what's the payback. I've seen paybacks in under 3 years, sometimes 2 years now. Again, that comes down to cost of system, products that we use, and what the current energy costs are. Higher energy costs, quicker the ROI. Things obviously change, but that's sort of where we are. Safety and reliability. There's a lot of interest in the moment about PV fires, or many have seen things on LinkedIn about solar being unsafe. Comes down to the installation at the end of the day and the products that are used. That's why fires are happening. We work with a company called SolarEdge. We're a global leader, one of the biggest brands globally. We're one of their 4 premium partners delivering solar edge solutions. Pretty much safety behind that technology is absolutely right over unmatched. So that's why we use them. Scalability and high loads, we can cover, large energy loads. Again, a lot comes down to grid and what we can connect to the local network. That's becoming extremely difficult. Certain areas in the south, it's even more difficult because that capacity got filled with versus, or some of the sunnier places. That's what happens. But as things are moving north, it gets slightly easier. We've still got our challenges. The UK's grid is split into different regions, different DNOs. Each DNO seems to have its own makeup and its own rules, which again is massively challenging. When you go to one DNO and say, yeah, we can do this, you can have this. This is the way we can get around it. Try to find a solution any way we can. And then we'll go to another DNO and say, well, they said that and they said that. It doesn't matter. We say this. That's how it works. So that's one of the challenges that we find in the moment. So what actually matters: finance and risk, sustainability, compliance, operational impact. Everything matters, obviously. Everything matters. Financially, is it a good investment? If you were to CAPEX this, absolutely, that's where your best returns are on the CAPEX. But then we'll look at PPAs, we'll look at lease agreements. There's so many companies and funders out there that are looking to put PV on roofs at home. It's pretty exciting. It's exciting for me because it means more panels on roofs, the more we earn. But there's various different options with regards to financing. So just going on to something that I really like talking about is what we've done in our case studies and how we work it. So as you'll see, we're working with various big retailers, food retailers, cold storage, warehouses, manufacturers, logistics companies. We've got the contract for Central Co-op that probably delivers 10 megawatt of PV across their retail portfolio, which was about 200 sites. An exciting project, something that we're really keen to get involved with and deliver. Still working with them. And again, we looked at it as a holistic approach. The quickest fix was PV. That was the quickest energy saving. So that's what we started. But now we're looking at all the different options to increase those savings and make them more significant. So this is a big one and probably resonates a lot with the people here. See the logistics that we've just delivered, and this is for Prologis. And so you mentioned Prologis earlier. Probably one of the biggest global real estate developers in the world. We were proud to win the tender, and we've been working with them now for 18 months. They'll solely delivering all their rooftop PV projects. Pretty small system actually when you look at the rooftop and what we've built. But you'd be surprised what goes into a design and how things have changed as far as loads, roof loads, how far we can work from skylights, etc. On the back of this, we're working with Hollis Global. Many may know of Hollis Global. They're a big FM company in the UK. They're raising the standards for UK PV and Welsh are following their standards. So the work that we're doing is absolutely key and critical to these systems moving forward. With no feeding types anymore, it means that these systems must be operational as close to 90% of the time as possible. I know. With PV in the past, it's become a bit of a forgotten. People are really keen at first and they want to look at the monitoring platform and they want to see how much they generate. After 6 months, they get bored of it. So if nobody's monitoring those systems and something happens and it goes down, the breaker trips or something really similar, power goes off and come back on. It can cost a lot of money. So on the back of all the systems that we're installing for all lodges, we're making sure we're offering the right package as well. It's a 25-year, 30-year project moving forward, which is, again, really issues. This is a really interesting one. It's a Sheard packaging, one of the biggest independent packaging manufacturers in the UK. Roger, the guy that owns Sheard packaging, has been a personal friend of mine for 30 years. I've been on it, Rog, you need to do something. Got to do something. We got sort of, let's see what happens. 3 years ago, he came to me after energy prices increased, and literally his prices have gone from 10 pence to 58 pence overnight. That was going to wipe out all his profit. Didn't know what to do, didn't have an answer. Who did he call? Me, 4 o'clock in the morning, after he gets out of the gym. Johnny, you need to come see me. I need to get solar removed. You won't believe what's happened. So goes down the season. Got a plan in place. Went to the grid. Fortunately, we were quite close to a big distribution point in Halifax, and the grid was pretty good. So we managed to get a 1.2 megawatt connection without any costs. And Roger spent 1.5 million on 1.8 million on a PV system, which paid for itself in 2 years, which was pretty good. So I was pretty happy with me. After all that pestering at it, which was pretty good. This is something that we're just doing at the moment. Solar farm down in South Wales, which will be energised at the end of October. This is built by a funder, where the EPC, and that power is going back into the grid, or power's going to be taken by a company down in London on a virtual BPA. So again, interesting ways that we can develop and we can use power. You think about how the grid operates, it's like a river. How it goes in one place, it can be pulled off anywhere. As long as it's a meter, and we know what's going in and what's coming out, we can pull off from anywhere in the country. So these virtual PPAs, corporate PPAs, there's much more. There's a lot going on in wind as well. Another reason why we're getting prices down to what they are. Finally, choosing the right solar partner. I'm going to say we're one of the best in the country we are. I can honestly say that. Our knowledge, the guys that have got working for us, our in-house design teams, people that we're working with, the guys that we've got on site, we employ everybody direct, so we're not a company which will subcontract any work out. We do everything ourselves. I wanted to do that. I believed in that from day one when I tried to build a business. At one point, this was me on my own in an office. So when the feeding times got slashed in 2015, I went back to that. So what we've tried to do is build that experience, bring in the right people, bring in the right teams, and do everything ourselves. We're a pretty much family business. My wife's my co-CEO. My son's one of my head electricians. And we've built around that. We've built around that core, our estate, every day. Family buy-ins really important to the business, and relationships as well. It's all about relationships. Again, supplier relationships goes without saying. It's absolutely critical for us that our ethos is not a fit and forget business. We're offering O&M packages on the back of everything that we install. We must do that. We must make sure that our clients that are spending a lot of money with us are going to know and be confident that this system is going to be operational for the next 30 years, or as close to 100% operational for the next 30 years. It's key to what we're trying to do, and that's what we do. That's what we offer. And I'll just go into a few of what our clients say about us. Obviously, everybody's got nice words to say about us. Doesn't come without its challenges. PV installations, providing EPC services, certainly for the likes of Prologis and others is difficult, and we must meet the standards and the criteria set by those teams. But when we've got guys flying in from Holland and Germany to assess and look at the work that we've done, and we're passing the defined colours, that makes me extremely proud, extremely proud of the business that I've built and the people in the organisation. Why choose Solar PV Group? Well, hopefully I've hit on a few points there as to why. Well, Solar Edge Premium Partner, that just got announced earlier this year. That's one of 4 platinum partners in the UK delivering Solar Edge products. That just doesn't go on the size and scale of systems that we install. That goes across a whole number of variables: how we install, what we install, where we install, how much we install, etc. And all things combined, that is one of the 4 top EPCs in the country again. Something that I'm really proud of from a fact I've been from Yorkshire. I think I've done all right. In-house experts, again, everything we do in-house, tested in-house, designed in-house. Again, simple system delivery. Repetitive, we do the same things. We do the same things constantly. Training's are massive for us. Our guys, personal development, everything there. Everything works really well. So again, something that I'm really proud of. There we go. That's me finished. Is your site ready? Any questions? Please come and see me afterwards. If I can help in any way, obviously will. Thank you.
So you tell me there's all this roof space that's not being used, and we can have all these savings, and the sun's shining and everything's lovely. Why aren't people doing it? Why aren't people fitting solar panels?
You want to go?
I'll give a developer's angle on it, which, I mean, funnily enough, was a similar thing was argued last year. The grid is the main constraint. The grid continues to be the main constraint. It's the issue I think you both mentioned earlier. Yes, fractured DNOs doesn't help, but there's talk of national policy. I haven't seen any delivery of national policy up to now. There are rules which are starting to come in this year in terms of occupiers, where ultimately they're clawing back the DNO's power, which has been promised to other people, and export capacity that hasn't yet been delivered. Until that actually makes its way through, capacity's freed up, that's import and export, that's a massive throttle back on it. And every single building we build is capable of delivering 100% PV. We just don't get the uptake, because either we can't guarantee it from a landlord perspective, or equally the occupiers just aren't there to want to work it through. Yeah, that'll take care of itself, but a big issue for me continues to be the grid.
Yeah, absolutely, I totally agree. What we certainly found a few years ago with the feed-in tariffs, there was a lot of people that were going and putting grid applications in willy-nilly everywhere. the local DNOs changed that, like by starting to charge us for the DNO applications and gaining capacity. Some of that's coming back online now, which is great, but we're nowhere near the infrastructure in the UK is so antiquated and so it needs a full upgrade. It needs government investment. It needs massive investment. And until we get that, there's no way we're going to meet these changes. And certainly, we spoke about earlier about increased electrification. It's going to get more. It's going to get worse, a lot worse before it gets better, I'm sure.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone's saying. I think there's two ways of looking at it. In terms of you've got solar generation to feed the grid, and then you've got solar generation to feed your own business, so front of the meter and behind the meter. If you size a solar array for your site's consumption, and it's well aligned, then you typically should be okay with getting authorization to do that, because your generation will be aligned with your kind of ASC, authorized supply capacity. Not in all cases. DNOs are tricky customers, as Tony pointed out, and they will have their peculiarities. But if the array is of a certain size and it's not over generating, then you should be okay. It's when you kind of oversize the array and you're flooding the grid with lots of additional generation, that's when they get particularly twitchy, because it's those kind of events that cause blackouts because they have no control. You can look at things like G100 connections where you try to put in limiters and all this kind of stuff. The DNOs aren't particularly keen towards them either, to be honest with you. But so for me, if you can focus on meeting your own site needs, both now and for the short term, then you may well be able to crack on with solar and not be too delayed by the grid, although I completely agree with everything the panel have said. I think another reason that people haven't done it is that they don't appreciate how cheap the generation is. Like, as Tony's pointed out, as I've said, they continue to pay 20, 30, 40, 50 pence per kilowatt hour when they could put an asset on their roof and be generating in pence per kilowatt hour, single figures. And it just seems mad that you don't pick up that and look into it.
Just sort of adding on to that as well, in the cost. When you look at those levelised costs, those levelised costs are not going to increase. That's only going to get more valuable as you move forward over the period of life expectancy of the system. So in 20 years, when we are paying up over £1 a kilowatt, and we're still paying 3p, that's when it becomes extremely valuable. That's when it becomes extremely valuable. And I think that's one thing that goes unnoticed and not really explained in the industry.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that we're finding is around roof liability with landlords. Is that something that you've had much experience with in terms of put the solar on the roof and then it goes through the roof, red sun bombing or whatever? Like, whose responsibility is it to fix the roof?
So everything that we do and every panel that we put on our roof, it's thoroughly checked and structurally checked before we do anything. We want to police systems and make sure that they don't need to be removed or replaced. So there shouldn't be any liability if the roof's suitable structurally. We'll go to the architects, we'll go to the structural surveyors, and we'll make sure of that. If it happens to be a problem after that, then it's down to the guy that did the structural survey or the architect that spec the system. But they get everything they need from us, and that's one thing that we make sure that we do in sort of the pre-install layers. Very, very significant.
I mean, just building on what you said now, again, from an investor developer perspective, was it by there about people don't like change? I think the UK change terrifies the construction industry a lot. We've had all the bits about modern methods of construction and modular housing. There's been a similar process as been with solar and green leases, repairing liabilities, insurance liabilities, but I think that's been worked through. Certainly from our end as a landlord and investor, the size of the portfolio that there is, it's second nature to us, and it is being passed down to occupiers that you've got directly and more businesses that sort of come out the forefront from yourself. It's second nature now. But in terms of, we always said retrospectively retrofitting solar, the structural roof loading was always the biggest issue that we were looking at after the grid. Their 60s, 70s roofs are built to withstand snow. They're not built to withstand however many square meters of steel and glass and the rest of it's on top of it. It's difficult to retrospectively bulk up the structure and the frame of a building when you've got it, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a proportion that can't do. You just need to spend the time in finding the right answer before you start.
Absolutely. The only thing I'd add on top of that is there are numerous specific systems for various roofing types now. The marketplace for mounting and racking systems is well established, and the suppliers have various calculators and installation methods. And as long as it's properly designed for the right roof by a quality installation team, then you shouldn't have any problems. It's only when you get cowboys involved that they'll start drilling holes left, right, centre and just making a mess of it.
And the products are changing as well. We had a problem where we couldn't use a palm which was over 18 kilos. So there's various different products on the market now. So we used a lightweight palm which was probably about 8 kilos. And we got around the situation that way about going to the so there are technologies coming into the market. That's also interesting about this industry. I started 1 metre by 2 metre palms, 180 watts. That's in output now is 700, 720 watts. It's fascinating what's going on. And seeing the growth and seeing the development is something that I'm really keen.
Any other questions? I mean, one of the things I'd like to ask is particularly fit for Will. When you said about Amazon having soon they'll have more robots than humans, does that mean? Do you think that they're looking some companies are looking more at efficiencies rather than, perhaps the greener side of things is the way they're performing and their wages and things like that? Is that a high priority for them?
So, I mean, in every time of economic downturn, people go towards that cost-saving approach, and I think the things that people are looking at, particularly from that cost-saving issue, is to reduce the reliance on labour, which means that you can have the ability to kind of keep your processes going no matter when if something happens. So it's really in that point that people are going towards that automation piece first, as it's a way to kind of continue that profitability. And I think following that, then they will go and come back to the environmental aspects. And that is kind of shown in various different industry-wide surveys. And I think looking at why occupiers are doing it now, because I think if you don't have really that strong ESG push and you don't know about the cost savings that could potentially come from having that solar panel, then they won't look at it and will look into automation and kind of reduce cost savings in that first, and then look into that solar panel kind of situation secondly.
Obviously, just touching on the solar and PV element again. Obviously, we've discussed that there's huge amount of space that PV and solar could be installed. Is there anywhere where it's not suitable, like airports and places like that? I mean, coming up a couple of issues now where people are worried about putting on airfields and stuff like that due to the glare. Do you know if there's anything in the market currently that protects that, or anything from any legislation saying you can't install PV near sort of airfields?
Yeah, we get this quite a lot around glint and glare and stuff, which I always find a bit farcical because every car windscreen is essentially a solar panel pointing at the sun. So, it's a bit of a nonsense, and there are many examples where solar panels have been installed alongside runways around the world and this, that and the other. It's just, I think, a bit of a British thing where we like to cover as many obstacles as possible. But, they can all be tackled in a structured way. You can have independent glint and glare assessments done that look at the orientation of the panels and the impact it would have on any incoming air traffic and stuff like that. But there are currently no regulations that prohibit you. There's nothing in the kind of I forgot what the name of the regulations are that govern the airspace around airports that say you can't have panels, but you've just got to jump through the hoops. So it's possible, but get ready to jump. So,
yeah, just forward on. We had an install out by Liverpool Airport. A company called Pronovis, a big print manufacturer. They're 2 megawatt put on air roof, literally right next door to Liverpool Airport. We had to go through a process that lived in glare. It's a planning thing. Planners are problem finders, problem solvers, unfortunately. There's another 3 megawatt system that's just been delivered right on Liverpool Airport as well, so it's definitely possible. And listen, we've all been on a plane out, I expect, and we're flying to different countries. Certainly flying to Germany, the Netherlands, anywhere in Europe. And all you see is running down is big.
We provide HVAC solutions into industrial commercial spaces such as these. We'll put the grid to one side just for a moment because I appreciate that's a real world problem. I'm just wondering whether commercially here we're talking about a change of rhetoric. What I mean by that is are we having to sell against ROI versus product costs? So initially, if we're talking about generators, boilers, heaters, ventilation equipment, it's just the product costs that's up front that you either put in your CAPEX or you don't. I just wonder now whether you mentioned sort of 2-year ROIs. Actually, realistically, most of the time we're talking 3, 5, 10-year ROIs, which is still good. I'm just wondering whether that makes the challenge of selling to coming from the viewpoint of the end user and the tenant at this point. Is that much tougher to ask? And if it is, I'm really interested to know if you've got any tactics and how you approach selling against ROI.
It's certainly an issue, and I think it comes down to naivety. Still viewed as a new emerging technology. When we're in this industry, we know it's not, we know it works, and getting that point across to certainly some FDs and financial managers of businesses that are pretty ignorant to solar. They're struggling to make a decision. It's difficult, and certainly to make a big decision that might be in the £500,000, £1 million is a huge decision for an FD. So they become pretty ignorant to it. They look at it and go, computer says no. So then we've got to revert back to ROI. I'd love to be able to go out and say it's not an issue, but yeah, it really is. How do we get around that? Don't promise. I don't want to promise. That's the key. I try and build rapport with Bill. It's difficult and it's challenging, but we seem to, and those that understand those are the targets. If someone's got an obstacle or they've got a challenge on returns on it, the question, I'd rather just walk away because I know they're not going to be a client for us.
Yeah, ROI is difficult. Primarily, the things that we're talking about are nice to have for businesses. That's the way they're perceived. They can get electricity from the grid if they need to, but if one of their major production lines breaks down, they haven't got a backup, so they're very nervous around investing in things like renewable energy and energy efficiency. But the ROIs are fantastic, or certainly can be if designed and presented properly. It's just a case of educating, I think, people exactly what you're offering and making sure that apples are compared with apples. In a prior life, I used to work in a strategic planning team for a large global corporation. And there was always a tendency to massage ROIs in certain directions. So it's just making sure that, everyone's on a level playing field and being quite open and transparent with the FDs or whoever's making the assessment to ensure that transparency is there.
I think also there's a bit of a double-edged sword at the moment happening within the wider kind of market in terms of occupiers, is that you have got that supply kind of increase happening quite considerably, which is giving more opportunities for buildings for occupiers to take. Hence, we're getting kind of a reduction in lease lengths, and they're seeing breaks at even 3 or 5 years and some units of kind of 50,000 square foot. As an occupier, why would you have that initial investment if you are only taking a 3-year lease? So I think from what we're currently doing, working with kind of policy, working with government advisors, is that it should be kind of a landlord-led initiative to kind of make your units more attractive, but also kind of to kind of give a benefit to occupiers being there, which is the likes of kind of what Tritents do and what Prologis do really throughout the wider UK, I believe.
Yeah, I was again adding my spin on it. Two things. Amazon was the conversation we started with. We're Amazon's largest landlord by square footage in the UK. So we were invited out to New York last week to talk in their global sustainability conference. They, despite Donald Trump, despite all the craziness over the other side of the pond, they see themselves as a global leader in sustainability. They are ultimately wanting to double down on sustainability rather than reversing out of it, which is comforting to hear from our side, it's comforting to hear from my side. I mean, in terms of the developer part of it, we are a FTSE 250 listed fund. we are a very similar ilk to the way that Amazon have to look at it. Is it's for us, it's what do we deliver for occupiers, what do we deliver for shareholders, and we've always prided ourselves on ESG and sustainability credentials. But again, they are doubling down on that, and we are as a fund, as opposed to it being less. So you've got the macroeconomic point where obviously from a capitalist society there are a lot of pushes on ESG and certain woke things that are around, but I don't see it going away. I genuinely see it improving from our perspective. You know, we have to deliver EPCA plus, we have to deliver net zero carbon in construction, we have to deliver BREEAM excellent or better, and we can't do that without solar and all of the other sustainability initiatives that go with it, which again, it's all heading the right way. There's don't even get me started on planning, because I can hear from but those additional bits, if we can iron out the final things, it's only going one way. It's not going to get any less, it's just going to get more.
Okay, from Coming Group. We've got some quite large developers in the UK, and there still appears to be a hesitance or nervousness around battery storage and logistics units. Now, I appreciate space is a premium, and it always will be, and batteries take up space. But how do we reduce that reluctance from developers to provide battery storage in their base build specifications, particularly where you're targeting operators that've got a 24-hour function, and also to on the market side, what is the general expectation from developers that their buildings should have the ability to have battery storage? I suppose it is more prevalent as well with the reform process and the gateway application and the palaver that's proven to try and get an export capacity connection in sometime in the next 8 to 10 years it's proven pretty difficult.
Batteries is a difficult one at the moment, and trying to create a payback on a battery is a dark art. We've not really found any significant solutions that we trust at the moment. You know, I've seen battery prices a few years ago put £2,000 a kilowatt, which is ridiculous. That's down to about £300 now. So battery prices have been significant as well, and that's been a challenge. You know, life scale timelines. You know, there's a lot of dark art that goes into a battery and how they operate. We're getting there. That's all we can say is we're getting there. We're doing a lot of work to try and deliver these batteries at scale. I was down in solar and storage last week, and I sat down and met with Octopus Business, who wanted to roll out battery only for all their C&I customers. So we're getting there slowly, but I'm not going to deliver anything to any of my clients and customers that I don't fully understand and I don't believe in at the moment. So that's on my view of things.
Just thought, do you think it's a situation we get to where we almost have a district network that's particularly in urban settings where the PV from roofs and logistics units could support residential development?
Yeah, absolutely, great point. We look at it as a microgrid. I don't think I know there's one in the UK at the moment, and it's down in Biggleswade. It's where the CF factory is. Is that yours? Yeah. So that's the only microgrid that I know down there. I only know because we've got a big distribution centre down there which we looked at. So I've been gone and looked around the microgrid, the CHP, obviously the solar from all the roofs and the battery. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And that's how I see the future going. Certainly with ProLogis, who we're working with, they're looking more and more at that side of things as well, because they are, looking at the map earlier of where the capacity is. It's frightening. It's frightening. We've got the big real estate developers that want to build them and have people for it. But if you can't find the capacity, or you've not got the electricity to power these places, it becomes so difficult. So I think microgrids are going to become certainly a thing in the future, definitely.
I think what I'd add on batteries is, to be honest, we don't actually offer them that often to our clients, because whenever we incorporate them into the calculations, they increase the payback period because they're so expensive. And to be honest with you as well, there are only specific cases where they add value to the client. Everyone says, "Oh, chuck in a battery, time shift the energy," and this, that, and the other. But batteries have to be cycled on a frequent basis. They have to be charged and discharged to certain levels. Otherwise, their useful life degrades. And sometimes you find you'll get stuck in that, you'll generate during the day and fill your battery up, but then you don't quite empty it at night. So then you get to the next day, and before you know it, you've got a battery that's just sat there and you're not properly discharging it and recharging it. So that they do have quite specific use cases. To your point, follow question around centralized batteries, that's when they could probably really add a lot of value. Industrial estates, trading estates, I think it'd be amazing if those businesses got together and said, hey, what can we do about this, and started setting up microgrids, because DNOs are becoming increasingly more difficult to deal with. The grid they're saying is going to take tens of years to correct itself, but there's nothing stopping businesses working together and creating a microgrid. That'd be a fantastic thing.
So we do a lot of kind of lessons from the US at Newmark, and we can see the level of kind of technology of batteries that are being used in America and also Asia is pretty incredible. And we do expect that to come over here, and developers have kind of done, the majority of spec development has provisions for battery storage or kind of creation, and that is just due to their developers all adhering to kind of the modern standard. The biggest issue that we're seeing is actually the insurance risk and the fire risk. And we're not seeing kind of the likes of the big building insurers or indeed the lawyers kind of advising that battery usage is kind of included, just due to the kind of perceived nature of it being quite a risky kind of new area. However, kind of in America and Asia, they have come over that quite significantly, and hence their usage. And then price fall is again quite a significant change from what we're seeing over here.
Building on what you guys have set up to now, I mean, from our perspective, we do include allowance for batteries as spec. It's our base spec in Blueprint. We are, from a viability perspective, looking at individually how we can deliver them with all the bits that you said, Will, in terms of the units. Waite is one of the first ones that we did. That was a combination of CHP, battery storage, and roof solar.